very much for entrusting me with this great responsibility to lead National Council of Jewish Women Australia as we move into the new decade. Before I say more, I'd like to acknowledge the Indigenous owners of the land, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and acknowledge their elders past, present and emerging. Because we're meeting across Australia, we're meeting on the land of many other Indigenous people, and I'd like also to acknowledge their elders past, present and emerging, and to recognise that we are our own Indigenous territory. I'd also like to acknowledge my immediate past president, Negba Dolive-Weiss, and her vice presidents, Di Hirsch and Shirley Glantz, all of whom have worked tirelessly for this organisation for many years. Although not remaining on the board, all three have agreed to provide me with guidance and the institutional continuity required to ensure that we move forward with strength. I should also acknowledge all the other women who've come before me, known and the unknown. I truly stand on the shoulders of strong, committed, passionate women who founded and built this organisation and continue to ensure that we play a significant role in the lives of Australian Jewish women and the wider feminist arena. We live in unusual times. It's over 100 years since the world dealt with a pandemic such as we are living through now. It's over 100 years since our borders were closed, since the nation's work was interrupted, since wearing masks was not just for bandits. And these times have had an unprecedented impact on women. There's been an increase in domestic violence and abuse. Women are murdered every day, and many more live in fear of their lives. Lockdown has often meant that there has been no escape for women who have been locked up with the abusive partner and have had nowhere to turn. There's been an increase in the number of unpaid hours of labour performed by women in the home. This has been estimated at an additional 6 hours a week. Women have disproportionately been affected by unemployment and wage reduction. Refugee women, Indigenous women, and women with disabilities in particular have often been left hungry and without sufficient resources to live. Homelessness or rough sleeping continues to be an issue for women, with women over 55 being the group most represented in this cohort. And this is a change for these women. The increase in mental health issues across the nation has imposed a significant additional burden on women, both as carers and as sufferers. There has been an increase in hate in many spheres, in racism and anti-Semitism, directed at people with disabilities, in misogynism. We live in the world, a strange world, a world where women are targeted with violence and death threats for speaking in the public arena and stating things like only spaces for women are sacred and that women need safe spaces that are women's only and that women's safety depends on this. Women are expected to give birth across the globe in hospitals where COVID patients are also being treated, and they're expected to manage pregnancy in unsafe environments. And the world we live in is one where there is a massive increase in human trafficking. And where women's rights are threatened by courts holding that access to sex workers is both necessary and reasonable, by commercial outlets commodifying women's bodies into sex dolls, allowing men to practice rape and pedophilia, and by self-hatred, where being a woman is so intolerable that the only response is self-harm and body mutilation. And these are just some of the issues we need to be aware of. But not all is doom and gloom. Women have adapted to the situation and have accessed education like never before. We have harnessed the power of the digital age and made it an opportunity, not a scourge. Women in Israel have demanded and won the right to sit the same rabbinic examinations as men. Not accessing this system had disadvantaged women in the workplace, in education, and in social status. Of course, this is being fought hard by men, but the gauntlet has been thrown. Women in Israel have united to deal with the COVID crisis and beyond. For the first time, there's been a significant network of feminist organisations across the country, with women actively drawing strength from each other. And finally, but not least by any means, The Black Lives Matter movement is asking people to look at institutional racism and at the treatment of vulnerable people within vulnerable people. This movement, raised from tragedy, may push the tide of social justice and make everyone realize that they have social responsibility. Of course, the issue is complex. The leaders of the Black Lives Matter movement have engaged in acts of anti-Semitism. And for Jews, this is an issue, and we must be aware of it. But this is not to in any way displace the important work that is being done. And Jewish women have been vulnerable, and Jewish people have been vulnerable. We know what it is to be vulnerable, and we must act for the good of all vulnerable people, and NCJWA must act for the good of women, all women, no matter where they are, no matter where they are in the system, Jewish women, non-Jewish women, in Australia, in Israel, in the rest of the world. Women's lives are of great importance and they need to be looked after. Women remain disadvantaged in so many environments. So our task is set for us. It's the responsibility of National Council of Jewish Women to inform the community about what is happening to women and by women, to advocate for women within and outside the Jewish community, and to be a voice against injustice. We also have a responsibility to work with the sections of National Council of Jewish Women around Australia and to help them in their endeavours to work for the rights and the equality and the justice and the liberation of women. The sections particularly engage in social justice work on the ground. The national body's task is much more in the advocacy arena, but we must work together and go forward together. Together we can help women and work for women, be a voice for women. I look forward to the challenge.